So we find ourselves in extraordinary times, and times that would be unimaginable in our lifetime, though I might remind you, not unimaginable in the life of the church. For 2,000 years, we've been through pandemics and social unrest and political division and more. But the question really is, what do we do and how do we respond? In this short video, I want to take less than 5 minutes to talk to you about how to respond as leaders in the midst of a crisis. We're going to walk through as leaders in the midst of a crisis. Now, let me tell you, this is not my original graphic or idea. This is from the book, You're It, Crisis, Change, and How to Lead When Matters Most. They're part of Harvard's incident management team, 4 authors that are listed there. And so their thesis is that you're going to be it in the midst of that moment, that crisis that comes. And none of us, January 2020, expected to be walking through a crisis that would last, or none of us, for that matter, in April 2020, thought we'd still be walking through this crisis over a year later. But here we are. And the question is, how do we respond? I want to walk you through our response and then hopefully challenge you to respond well, to glorify the Lord even in the midst of some of those responses, and to walk through the tumultuous times by leading well. To do that, you need to look through what we might call rooms of a crisis. Let me show you here on the PowerPoint as well. So rooms of a crisis. Think in terms of, you can see 3 things, right? The basement is survival instincts. The workroom is routine patterns, and the laboratory is creative thinking. Now, Josh Laxton and I put a whole course together on crisis leadership. If you're interested, you just Google my name and crisis leadership. You'll find the course. It's a MOOC. It's an open course that people can take. But I want you to see that at the beginning of the crisis, remember March and April 2020, right? February, March, and April 2020, people realized how serious this was going to be. They first realized in Wuhan, and then in Italy, and then in Iran, and soon to the UK. And at that point, people were not sure how to respond or not sure what to do. We saw that. And they go to the basement. That's survival instincts. That's why people rushed out to get bathroom items, right? Because they get toilet items, because they want to respond with the survival instincts. Then what happened is, and this is where churches had to make a shift, right? Churches moved online, and this is, 2020 and more. And we get to the workroom and routine patterns, and we kind of got to new ways of how to do ministry, right? So now we're all probably going to be online in some form, even after this pandemic passes. It just changed. Our routine patterns have changed. How we minister to people, how we engage people. Hopefully you have a greater level of engagement through phone and through online and all other kinds of resources, right? So, but remember too that the third part is the laboratory. Now, the laboratory is where I hope you have gotten to by asking some questions with you and your team and with across Elim, and asking, how do we do things better? What creative ways of thinking? Actually, the Crisis Leadership course, the MOOC, which stands for Massive Open Online Course, was something that came out of our laboratory creative thinking. I got our team together right after the month or 2 in, and said, okay, what are we going to do to be indispensable to churches in 2020 and 2021? And some of you used our resources. We launched coronavirusinthechurch.com. We launched the Resilient Church Leadership Initiative, helping pastors and leaders create reservoirs of resilience in the midst of this very difficult and turbulent time. So here's my question for you. The crisis is not over. Matter of fact, what we'll see is there'll probably be hotspots, and we have to think in terms of an accordion. We'll expand and contract. Ministry will still be unstable for time to come. So what ways did you think, or might I add, what ways do you need to think moving forward so that you might be asking, Lord, how would you have us to be faithful and fruitful in the midst of this crisis? We got out of the basement. Okay, we got to the workroom. We got into our routine, new familiar patterns and the new reality which we have. But Lord, what would you have us to do? Maybe how is the Spirit prompting us? How are we learning from other churches to see what the Lord's doing in other churches? Getting in the laboratory to creative thinking. What I challenged our team was that in 2025, I want us to look back to 2020 and say there are significant decisions that we made, that how we're going to do mission and ministry, that have actually helped us to be better during and after the pandemic. And that's my encouragement to you, is to step into that space and to lead well into the laboratory with that creative thinking. 3 rooms of a crisis. Let's move out of the routine habits of the workroom. Let's keep thinking, what's next and how might we engage our culture in faithful and fruitful ways?